is Cherry. I teach biology and chemistry and a few other things here at MAK. This is our biology class. So we will be taking the stance that evolution is a fiction, while the other side is saying that evolution is a fact. I wish you all the best. I hope you enjoy this, that you learn new things as you watch younger people as you watch older people. I hope that your mentality is not to just win, but to sharpen yourself as an individual. So thank you for this opportunity.
Sorry. Now, this is the event that we've long been waiting for, right? This is the 9th year, so this has become a tradition between MAK and NSYSU. My name is James Liu. I'm a professor in the Department of Oceanography. These are my students taking my scientific English course. And I use debate as a platform to integrate writing, thinking, speaking, listening, and critical thinking. So, here, part of them will be debating you, and part of them will do a peer review. They will be judging their peers. And now, just for some mechanics, because of time constraint, each of you, the speaker, only has 2 minutes and 15 minutes. My assistant Peter will keep a timer. When the bell goes off at 2 minutes, and you will know that you need to wrap up. So at the end, at 2.5 minutes, then I will kick you off the podium. So you need to make your point. You need to articulate your point succinct and concise. Okay, that's all you have to do. And also, the debate is breaking up in 2 parts. The first part is the structured part, where you have this constructive rebuttal. And at the end, we have a free rebuttal. That means you will name your opponent. Okay, you come up here, I say, my opponent say, Peter, you don't make sense. Okay, I demand you, or so. But at that time, each person has 1 minute to come up here and challenge any of your opponents and name. So you need to remember their names for both sides. And then the challenged person need to respond. Okay, then that person can also say, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot answer you. And that's failure. That will be a demerit on their part in my course. Okay, any question about this? So, and about halfway, we'll take a 5-minute break. So go to the bathroom. Okay. So, and this is the focus on this is about learning. Okay. You have studied. You have pulled all the facts together, and you make your point. You articulate it. So, of course, we want to win. Okay. But winning is not important. It's the process of learning. Okay. So now I wish all the speaker the best. Okay. First, proposition rebuttal.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Austin. I'm going to talk about the introduction, constructive of evolution. Since ancient times, many people believe in creationism. They believe that the universe and life derive from the specific behavior of divine creation, instead of being consequence of a natural process such as evolution. However, after several years of scientific reforms and research findings, lots of the evidence gradually made public of the theory of natural evolution, breaking the myth of creationism. And this theory, the theory of evolution by natural selection, was first formulated by Darwin in his book On the Origin of Species, According to this theory, organisms change over time According to this theory, organisms change over time as a result of natural selection, driving force which allow them to survive by adapting themselves to the environment. More precisely, due to the random mechanism of hereditariness, each new individual will born slightly different from others, being stronger, faster, or simply better equipped to cope with the changing world. And that's my constructive introduction. Thank you.
First, opposition construction.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Emily, and today I will be opening for the creationist side of the debate. So we, the creationist team, believe that God created the universe through divine creation as opposed to natural selection through evolution. We specifically believe in young earth creation, which the Bible defines as the creation of the earth through supernatural form about 6,000 years ago. Today we will be presenting many points to prove creationism to be true and to show you all that evolution is nothing but a fictional story supported with weak evidence and full of contradictions. Some of the first major points we will bring up are about how macroevolution is nothing but an assumption that cannot be tested, and how the Earth's magnetic field proves that our Earth is in fact under 10,000 years old. A few other points include how matter cannot be created or destroyed, which disproves the Big Bang Theory, the impossibility of life forms spontaneously generating from nothing, and how the shape of Neptune's rings shows that our solar system is much younger than we ever imagined. We also bring up ideas, including how basic life substances cannot come into existence from nothing over time, and evidence of the impossibility of phylogeny occurring through the ocean salt levels. After that, we will talk about DNA sequences and mutations within organisms. Then we will introduce ideas about anatomy, specifically through the nervous system and through mammals' bone structures, as well as vestigial organs and the obvious existence of intelligent design in our world. Following that, we will discuss how fossils do not point to evolution, natural selection, and false transitional species. Then we will end by talking about the complexity of the nervous system in the human body, Mount St. Helens, and exactly what it teaches us about the rapid formation of fossils, and exactly how misleading transitional forms can be. In conclusion, we look forward to debating with you all today, but the strong evidence presented to you from our team will show you all that creationism is in fact true, and evolution is nothing but a theory. Thank you.
Alright, so good morning. My name is Ethan, and I'm from the side opposing evolution. And I'll be talking about how evolution is only a loop of theories, and to show how we are created, and that cannot be observed. And all of these theories we have on evolution cannot be observed by the human, because our lifespan is too short to observe these. And all of the theories we have are built on inferences. Scientists see the fossils, and they see the similarity between two fossils, and they infer that they come from the same organism, and they're the descendant of the first organism on Earth. And evolution is nothing more but inferences built on more inferences. And why do we choose to believe that all life is created on random? And why don't we just think of the simple answer that there's a perfect God or a higher power that created us? How can all these complex life forms coexist on Earth perfectly like it is right now? Scientists that support evolution find fossils of organisms and claim that they're descendant of one another. But where do all these organisms lead to? If we're viewing from the side of evolution, then humans come from monkeys. Monkeys come from fish from plants, and plants from Earth. This is an unending loop that leads to the origin of everything, which has no answer to it. Because we can never answer where we truly came from, because nobody knows. So why don't we just choose to have the simple answer that a higher power created us and set us in motion and in life? And after all, we will never know how the universe happened. So we can just believe that God set everything in order, and it's perfect because God did. This is why me and my team strongly opposes evolution.
So, hello everybody, my name is Jada, and today I'm going to support my position in favor of evolution as a fact. So, according to the theory of evolution, as stated previously, organisms change over time due to this natural selection driving force, which will allow them to adapt to the changing environment. And the accumulation of those changes will explain the creation of a great variety of species. But now, if we look at the macroevolution, so from the primitive era to nowadays reality, it is possible to find some common traits among organisms. And these common traits are shared among organisms since they share the same ancestor. So to better understand my argument, you can think about your family. And giving an example, you and your sister are maybe more alike than you and your cousins. The idea behind this very simple fact is that the more organisms are related, and the more common traits they have in common. And these common traits are called synapomorphisms. In heart, all life is shared this common patterning, and by definition, synapomorphisms are those characteristics that are present in ancestral species, and they will definitely and exclusively be displayed in their descendants. So, if evolution by natural selection was not true, this common patterning would find no explanation. Summarizing, the theory of evolution by natural selection, which is made evident by the existence of these common traits among organisms, can prove evolution being a fact. Thank you.
Second, composition construction. Proposition. You are opposition.
Hello everyone, my name is Vanessa. Today I'm going to talk about the one-off idea of evolution, natural selection, which is a major scientific theory to explain how the diversity of life with so many species and large variation in character came to exist. The concept of natural selection was first formulated by Darwin, and it operates whenever individuals differ in heritable traits that result in difference in their relative contribution of offspring to the next generation. Traits that benefit an organism to maximize its biological fitness under the prevailing environmental conditions will spread in the population and thus function as adaptation. Environmental change and variation of individuals make the species compete, and the fittest one will survive. For example, before giraffes adapt to having very long legs, this was extremely prevalent that taller giraffe could reach higher food supply when the food supply grown lower was scarce, while the shorter-necked giraffe could not reach the food and this would not survive. Species variation, mass production, and survival, competition, and fittest one will survive. These are steps of natural selection. I think that the direct evidence of evolution is adaptation because of the variation between the same species. Adaptation is a process that makes creatures better suited to their habitat. Therefore, it may cause either the gain of a new feature or the loss of an essential feature. With a mechanism, the individual which can adapt to the environment will exist. By contrast, the one which cannot adapt will be eliminated. Above all, we support the theory of evolution by natural selection. Thanks for listening.
Okay, good morning, fellow teammates and worthy opponents. My name is Anne, and I will be explaining how macroevolution through mutations is impossible. Macroevolution is essentially an assumption that cannot be tested, nor and also that organisms evolving through mutations, which is the core argument for evolutionists, does not stand. So in order for a mutation to even fix in the population, a lot of conditions have to be met, and let alone a mutation that's actually beneficial and will stay in the population permanently. So according to geneticists R.H. Biles, in order for mutations to benefit or even occur, several conditions have to be met. And natural selection actually helps keep things stable rather than help them change. So the mutation, if it wants to fix itself in the population, has to be recurrent, and the mutation rate has to be really high for the mutation to stay in the population. And also, the mutation has to have a high heritability. However, that's not the case for most mutations. And also, the population that is concerned with mutation has to be very large, as a small population can be easily eliminated by the mutation. But then, in large populations, the thing is the mutation will be easily eliminated and flooded by the common traits that the rest of the population has. So I would like to bring in the swamping argument that's an opposition for Darwin's ideas. So Mr. Jenkins, who was a Scottish engineer, gave forth the swamping argument. He stated that a variety that accidentally appeared, which is a mutation, even if it's a beneficial one, will be eventually swamped by the common traits of the common population. So it is sort of like if a animal that has a higher intelligence than the average population, the trait will not stay because it will be eventually through generations the higher intelligence will be swamped by the rest of the average traits. Okay, so my teammates will be further explaining how mutations are rarely beneficial and how macroevolution is a theory that cannot be tested. Thank you.
Second opposition rebuttal.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Evan, and today I will be arguing that evolution is fiction. I will be talking about how life does not come from simple cells and the complexity of cells. Recent years, the development of powerful electron microscopes has revealed that the simple cell is not really so simple. Research scientist Jonathan Sarfati has written about the complexity of simple life. His research confirmed and showed us that even the simplest cell reproducing organism contain and have encyclopedic quantities of complex information. One example would be the Mycoplasma genitalium. Mycoplasma genitalium has the smallest known clone, but still contains 482 genes, consisting of 590,000 base pairs, which basically tell us that simple cell is actually not really so simple. The discovery of DNA was one of the 20th century most spontaneous scientific discoveries. Scientists found that every living organism have a specialized molecule containing code that control metabolism, repair, replication, and specialized function. Researchers have identified 4 letters genetic alphabets and into 3-letter sequence called codons. Codons provide the instruction for DNA. Even the simplest cell that evolutionists assumed that every living thing evolved from them also have 1 million codons. Geophysicist Dr. John Baumgartner asked, "Do anything in the laws of physics that suggest how such structure might arise in a spontaneous fashion?" No, of course not. Dr. John Baumgartner answered his own question. The answer is really, really simple. What we understand from thermodynamics and the understanding of the DNA is persuasively argues that they do not and cannot arise spontaneously. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Sammy. Natural selection proves the evidence of the evolution, as my partner Vanessa has said. When the environmental change, survival competition happen, then the one which cannot adapt to the habitat will be eliminated. So I'm going to give some example to prove the natural selection. Before the Industrial Revolution in England, dark colored paper monks were rare, less than light colored paper monks. Then in the late 18th century, owing to air pollution, dark colored paper monks were supposedly better camouflage on pollution-darkened tree trunks. So the dark ones can avoid being caught by predators. Therefore, the amount of light and dark colored paper monks varies greatly. It represents that the environmental change leads to the competence between the species. Then the fittest one will survive. And take another species for example. DDT was a common insecticide and pesticide in 20th century. In Taiwan, many people used to use DDT to eradicate malaria. It was very useful and effectively in the beginning. However, it brought huge impact. Except for damage the environment, it made bugs evolve resistant to DDT. From then on, DDT has been no longer effective to these bugs, and their gene was spread. According to this evidence, it can be clearly seen that the one who cannot adapt to the environment will be eliminated. However, someone thinks that natural selection is a kind of microevolution. Respond to this thinking. In my opinion, the main point of natural selection is adaptation. While flowering plants are the most competitive plants nowadays, that is, they have an advantage on reproducing by many pathways such as wind, animals, and so on. In contrast, moss cannot reproduce without water. So we can know that due to the mechanism of reproduction, flowering plants is the most competitive species related to the moss. From this example, it proves that natural selection is a slow process, selecting the suitable creatures. As the time goes by, they will become the advantage species in the environment. So in consequence, evolution depends on natural selection. The natural selection is the mechanism of the creature living on the earth. So I believe that evolution is true. Thank you.
The third, composition construction.
Hello everyone, I'm Liana. According to Darwin's phylogenetic tree, he proposed that the evolutionary history of life forms a branching tree with many levels, in which whole species can be traced back to an ancient common ancestor. We also have evidence which can prove that animals who copulate in gametophytes have embryos in the beginning. After a process of cleavage, embryos turn into morula, then blastocyst. There is difference between embryos according to their appearances and the ways of formation. They become similar until their development of gastrula. However, they are different again after developing into germ layer, which gives rise to chordate organs. The common characteristic which animals possess at first is epidermis. Then it will develop into specialized structure, such as fish scale and our hair. The more complicated species are similar to original ones in the beginning. Then it becomes more and more different with their growing up. Chordate variety organs are differentiated from their common structure, epidermal germ layer. According to that, so we can prove that the chordates have a common ancestor by embryology. Thank you for listening.
The third, opposition construction.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Diane, and today I will be arguing for the team that thinks evolution is not a fact. So, a scientist called Dr. Thomas G. Barnes in 1971 drew attention of scientists to the fact that the Earth's magnetic field was decreasing. And between 1835 and 1965, geophysicists had made 26 measurements of the magnetic dipole moment of the Earth's magnetic field. And Dr. Barnes, with those data, he plotted a decay chart, which he then calculated that the half-life of the Earth's magnetic field was 1,400 years. So with all his calculations and data, he concluded that the Earth's magnetic field was less than 10,000 years old. So if evolution believes that the Earth is 4 billion years old, how could the Earth's magnetic field be just less than 10,000 years old? So this study contradicts evolution and what they believe to be the age of the Earth. But on the other hand, creation perfectly fits into this study because creation thinks that the age of the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old. Also, I would like to talk about the Big Bang Theory, which is what evolution believes to be how the world began. So in short, the Big Bang Theory states that there's a small ball with infinite density and intense heat called the singularity, and it just started to grow and the universe came to be. But according to the law of conservation of mass, matter cannot be created or destroyed. So how did the singularity come to be? So evolution thinks everything happened in natural process. So if something that happens in a natural process violates natural law, because the law of conservation of mass is a natural law. So this kind of contradicts itself because the logic just doesn't flow that well. So to sum up my points, the Earth's magnetic field's half-life is 1,400 years old, which leads to a conclusion that the life was less than 10,000 years old. So it contradicts with what evolutionists think to be the age of the Earth. And the Big Bang Theory contradicts a natural law, which if everything happens in a natural process, then how could it violate a natural law? So in conclusion, our team believes that evolution is not a fact, but merely a fiction. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. My name is TJ Lowe, and today I'm debating on the side stating that evolution is fiction, because I found that the experiment performed by Francisco Redi in 1668 disproved spontaneous generation, which spontaneous generation is the belief that creatures come from non-living things. And so I'll give you an example, and this is an example of maggots, which many believe that maggots came from non-living things. And so in 1668, Francisco Redi placed 2 jars. In both of them, he placed 2 pieces of meat, and one he covered and one he left open. And after a few days, after the same amount of time, he found that the one that was open, there was maggots in it, and the one that was closed, it was still fresh. Well, not fresh, but there was no maggots. And the reason for this was that maggots did not come out of non-living things. The reason is because the flies would go into the meat and lay their eggs, and that's how the maggots were created. And so this shows that no organisms can come from non-living things. And so I would like to use an analogy for this. Say if you were walking in the forest and you find a Rolex watch, you're not going to say like, oh, this came out of the sky or this came out of the ground. It just doesn't. The logic doesn't work out. And so it gives you the idea that the watch was designed by a designer. And so this shows spontaneous generation is impossible. And the watch analogy and Redi's experiment shows that life is too complex to arise from non-living things. And so my second point is about Neptune's rings. The rings have existed since the creation of the planet, which is about the same time as the creation of Earth. And so so we can predict that Neptune and Earth are both the same age. And so yet the rings are extremely uneven and very thick, and there's very thick and thin regions. And so if this is the case, then Neptune still has the rings, and they're still spinning around it. But if evolution is right, stating that the Earth is 4 billion years old, then the rings would not be still spinning around the planet, and they would have been evened out with the collisions that have been occurred. And so, thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, I'm Becky. And we all learned a picture which hackers drew about embryos and in our textbook. And the picture says that all the vertebrates, embryos, the growth process are are the same at first, but actually it is fake. A doctor in United Kingdom, Richardson, has clearly observed that the fish, salamander, turtles, chickens, humans, and 3 mammals use inheritance embryos, and their growth process are different, not exactly the same at first. The humans have no stage of fish development when the embryos develop, when the embryos of all vertebrates do not have the gill, but have a pharyngeo process. The pharyngeo process of fish develop as gill, but in other animals, the pharyngeo process develops into structure unrelated to gill, such as the inner ear and the parathyroid gland. And they have the pharyngeo process during the embryonic period. So I think they are from a common ancestor. And this is my opinion. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Silvia. To explore our stand of evolution, I will take two anatomy evidence. And we can observe from the homologous features such as bone. It's very clear from this observation is no matter how many bones of different organisms own, we all have the same part of bone for action, such as humerus and phalange. Maybe they look different size and shape, but they still have the same application. For humerus, explore all lifting and physical activity. For phalanges, organisms use them to grazing. From this fact, one may conclude that we are all evolved by same or similar structure. And second evidence is vestigial structure and organ. A vestigial organ or vestigial structure is an anatomical feature or behavior that no longer seems to have any purpose in the current form of organism. Here is some example. We can find underdeveloped legs from snake. And the other example is our wisdom tooth. According to the article of Molly Emmons, early man's jaws were larger and more prominent because teeth play a vital role in survival. Our ancestors subsisting on a tough and chewy diet of leaves, roots, and raw meat. However, we do not need to chew those food nowadays, so that our jaws are retrograded smaller, which means that the wisdom tooth is no longer important for us. And to draw the conclusion, one can say the anatomy proves the evolution is a fact. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, fellow debaters and audience. My name is Somachen, and I'll be talking about some of the major flaws in the theory of evolution and how fossils don't point to evolution. So according to our team, a key mechanism of evolution is natural selection, and you talk about how it produces new organisms. However, I would like to say natural selection is a selective force and not a creative force. So let me give you an example. Let's say you are a worker working in a factory that produces cars, and your job is to select the best cars to sell and the worst cars to be fixed or destroyed. How long would it take you to produce an airplane? It wouldn't. It's a ridiculous logic. And I would say the same to evolution. Your team claims that from selecting the best bacteria billions of years ago, they were able to evolve into humans that have such complex body systems and intelligence. Now, I would like to also talk about how fossils do not point to evolution. We all know that soft tissue is something very hard to preserve because microbes feast on soft tissue very quickly and can completely eat it in days or even weeks. However, 6 years ago, we discovered a 75 million years old dinosaur that had a complete piece of soft tissue on it. And Darwin once clearly stated that soft tissue wouldn't be found in the fossil record. This is a direct counterexample to Darwin's statement and is also a proof of evolution being false. In talking about carbon-14 dating, it is a completely invalid method of dating that evolution bases its whole theory on, with an inaccuracy rate of 68%. So another phenomenon that we observed in fossils are trees that grew through 4 strata layers. So evolution says that each strata is like really old and some are even like 1 million years old. However, there are trees that grow through 4 layers. So let's say one layer, one layer, one layer, one layer, and there's a tree growing through all 4 of them. This says that this tree is 4 million years old. How do you explain this to me? So in conclusion, evolution is a theory full of contradictions within itself and without any proof. And in the end, I would like to ask the evolution team a question. If your brain is just a random collection of chemicals over billions of years, then why should we trust your reasoning processes and thoughts that you think? Thank you.
Hello debaters, I am Louis and I am from the opposition team, stating that evolution is in fact a fiction. Today I will be talking about transitional species and how they're misleading or false. Transitional species are basically terms that people use to identify the intermediate forms between one species to another. So if you say that transitional forms are just yet to be discovered, then why hasn't it been discovered in the past million years of Earth that you guys claim to be? Since many fossils of many other species, such as fish or whale, have been found, then why hasn't the transitional species between the evolving two been found? This just clearly says that transitional forms can never exist and has never existed. Since macroevolution cannot be measured at all, we haven't got a hold of transitional species at all. Suddenly, from a small microorganism, like a bacteria at the beginning of the Earth, it turned into a whale and other more complex systems. Organs cannot just appear out of nowhere. Likewise, many fossils show giraffes with shorter necks, opposed to longer necks as we see today. Many evolutionists state that they have longer necks now because they need to adapt to their environment by reaching to eat leaves higher up in their environments. However, if that's the truth, then why haven't humans adapted to their environment by growing larger eyes to see in the dark, having an epiglottis at the back of our mouth to prevent choking, and having a bigger pelvis to prevent labor pain, and more other improvements? If there were transitional forms between apes and us, then these problems would have been solved centuries ago. However, that's the problem. There isn't any transitional forms. Furthermore, common characteristics between two species does not explain that we have a common ancestor, but explains that we have a common creator. For example, we are similar to monkeys, and people say we are similar to monkeys, and birds are similar to certain dinosaurs because a common ancestor. However, it's because we have a common creator. A chance of a random explosion cannot make structures that have a variety of functions. In contrast, a common creator is the only way that we are similar to these animals, and have the same functions or like structures. As many of our other teammates have said, the Big Bang couldn't have created everything on Earth, the animals, the complex DNAs, and especially humans. The only explanation for complex system is made through an intelligent designer, not a natural phenomenon. And this is why we believe that evolution is just a theory, not a fact. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Wing Tong. According to our opinions, we should keep in mind that the evolution is a slow process, with change in species happening over hundreds or thousands, if not millions of years, depending on how significant the change is. For example, the wife sharks got 300 to 350 teeth on house, but they are only advantage to their ancestor because the sharks are the fertile feeder nowadays, which means they only eat planktons without a bite. So we can speculate the shark's ancestor is used to eat meat with the teeth. Although many of these types of structure would disappear over many generations, some keep being passed down to offspring because they do not harm. They ain't disadvantaged for the species, or they have changed function over time. Some are present or functioning only during the embryo stage of fetal development, or maybe they just have no functions as we get older. The example is the areata pure muscle. The muscle used to help organisms balance body heat or scare other animals when they feel fear to raise their hair on their body. Although human does not need this ability, our muscles still react when we feel cold. I have a reason to believe this is a case of harmless residual structure. Why do we have some organ which can be removed? We should consider this point deeply because it does not make sense as our body creates useless structure. We discover some organs are residual so that we can speculate these organs are the features of our ancestor by evolution. And this is all I want to say. Thank you.
The fifth proposition construction.
Hello everyone, I'm Liana. Now I will talk about the fossil, the evidence of natural selection. Well, when the environment is hypoxia and no bacterial decomposition, how the biological remains or biological traces can be preserved in rocks or amber. And we use radioactive isotope to analyze the rock layer age, and we collect the fossils from the layer. It shows that all the fossils around the world we found, from older layer to newer layer, in sequence by fish, amphibian, reptile, birds to mammalian fossil, and no fossil violated. For example, paleontologists find fossils of horses at different times. You can see that from older layer to newer layers, the multi-toe and the smaller body size gradually become to a single toe and the larger body size. The multi-toe and smaller body is convenient for activity between the trees. When environment change into the grassland, single toe and larger size are easier to survive. So the multi-toe horses which not adapt were dead, and less tall horses will survive. The differences between generations accumulate. Finally, now we can see the horses around the world are all single-toed and have a larger size. In sum up my point, because of environmental change, the number of horses toed and the size of body change. The toe change from multi to single and size change from small to large. The fossil from horses is evidence of natural selection, so we believe theory of evolution is true. Thank you.
Okay, hello debaters. Today I'll be explaining examples of transitional species to back up what our previous speaker, Luz, has talked about. First, I would like to start off by giving you examples of Tiktaalik and Kolyanth. You might bring up examples of missing links in the future, but there are no such things as missing links. So for Tiktaalik and Kolyanth, they were thought to be missing links, but the only fossil that they had was Tiktaalik and Kolyanth looked like a living fossil. But throughout 50 to 60 millions of years, they would have evolved to its environment, and they wouldn't have looked like a living fossil. And Tiktaalik were also thought to have evolving legs, but its evolving legs were just fins, used to maneuver and control its swimming in a more efficient way. And the traces left by the Tiktaalik were just its fins touching the ocean floor. And by touching the ocean floor, it caused an illusion of an animal trace. And let me give you an example of the famous land animal to whale theory. Museums and textbooks love to claim that whales were like the best transitional species. And evolutionists believe that whales came from either Pakicetus, Amblocitus, Rhodiocetus, or Basilosaurus. People see whales as an evolved Pakicetus because of its long body structure and its long jaw. But scientists miss out on three parts. Pakicetus didn't have a blowhole, it didn't have a flipper, or a flat limb, and there are no whale neck. For Amblocitus, scientists love to use the reason that Amblocitus has a very thin cheekbone. But let me tell you, Amblocitus actually has a very thick cheekbone. Let's compare to a horse. Horses are seen as an animal that has a very thick cheekbone. Still, Amblocitus has a thicker cheekbone than a horse. And we have Rhodiocetus, which was claimed to be an aquatic animal that was developing front flippers just like whales and had a whale-like tail that swam. The actual evidences were nothing close to what scientists has claimed it to be. It had no fossil skeletal evidences of a tail or a flipper to either exist. And Basilosaurus is lastly the most important ancestor or species of a whale. The reason they say this is because Basilosaurus is a marine animal, just like Rhodiocetus. They have a very tiny limb around its body. But Basilosaurus, its limbs were not used for anything. It wasn't even used for walking, it wasn't used for swimming, it was just used to have a better grasp of reproduction. So this is why we believe that evolution is a fiction.
Hello debaters, my name is Andre from MAK, and our team firmly believes that evolution is not a fact, but a theory that contains many contradictions and holes. One strong evidence that proves the impossibility of evolution is the electrical design of the human body. The nervous system is a complex collection of nerves and specialized cells known as neurons that transmit signals between different parts of the body, and its complexity far surpasses anything produced by man, and is nothing short of a miracle. There are nearly 46 miles of nerves in the adult's body, and there are approximately 100 billion neurons in the human brain. A typical healthy brain contains more than 200 billion nerve cells, which are connected to one another via hundreds of trillions of synapses. Each synapse functions like a microprocessor, and tens of thousands of them can connect to a single neuron. Also, in the cerebral cortex alone, there are roughly 125 trillion synapses, which is about how many stars are contained in 1,500 Milky Way galaxies. So I would like to ask the opponent, are you actually basing the complexity of life on random chances and a long period of time? Not only is the structure of the nervous system breathtaking, the coordination of neurons in the nervous system will prove to all of us that evolution is not the answer to the complexity of the electrical design of the human body. As I have stated, each synapse functions like a calculator, and tens and thousands of them can connect to a single neuron. Each and every neuron must operate for the whole system to work. One failure will result in error and possibly death. The coordination that is happening in the nervous system is unbelievable and not be happening just by random chances. Assuming that each synapse processes one action potential each per second, and that these transactions represent the brain's computational output, then the brain performs at least 1 quadrillion operations per second, almost 1,000 times more than the best supercomputers. Since the most advanced computers ever designed by man are far less complex and capable as the human brain, then is it completely unscientific to conclude that the brain is produced by an intellectual designer? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stella. So, as you said, that fossils cannot prove anything. So, how about what has found in the fossil here? So, as you can see, for the ancestors of the dinosaurs, Allosaurus, they have the common ancestors with the archaeoparasites, and the archaeoparasites and the modern birds today have the common ancestors. So, this is what we call transitional fossils. You cannot deny what you found. So the next proof that we have is the modern tooth whale. And I remember that your team said that what they do not have, but I can't really hear just now. So you still cannot deny that the fact that the hands limb that they evolved from, they walk on the land and until they adapt to the environment in the sea, they still have the hands limb in their body parts, but they just reduced to smaller size. And you still cannot deny what their limbs here. It still have the bones inside. There are difference with the fish, you see, right? So you claim that evolution is not a fact. Yeah, we cannot prove it in a stricter sense, but traditional fossils are suggestive of an evolutionary relationship rather than prove it. So without actually going back to see the hatchling or watching the birth of its successive organism in an evolutionary change, it's actually, we cannot prove that the evolutionary relationship exists, but if you accept evolution, you can be sure that organism is actually an ancestor of existing species. For example, it might be a side branch that already died out. And in the past centuries, that the oceans today other land in the past. So during the migrations of the animals, when they walk through the land that is the oceans today, so the oceans now covers the lands, and you haven't discovered what is in the oceans. What you have found is in the land. So you cannot deny that, you cannot say that the evolution is a fiction, it's not a fact, because you haven't found it in the ocean. So I want to ask you, have you found the fossils in the oceans? Haven't, right? So this is my opinions. This is my opinion. Thank you very much.
I was wrong?
Proposition.
Oh, proposition constructors. Okay. No. Stella was rebuttal. Okay, I'm sorry. Getting old. Okay. 6. Proposition constructors.
Hello everyone, I'm Edgar. Today I want to tell you how geography influenced the evolution, and I will explain it in the two concepts of Pangea and the Ice Ages. The first example is kangaroos and the koalas, which are marsupials that have a pouch to raise their babies. Marsupials now are only found in Australia and the Americas, and they are dominant species only in Australia. However, marsupials used to be numerous, and they lived in most continents when these continents were still connected together. After Eurasia appeared, marsupials became disadvantaged in evolution, and they gradually disappeared in most continents. Nonetheless, before Eurasia appeared in large numbers, some continents started to separate, and Australia was separated from others earlier. So therefore, marsupials in Australia didn't have to compete with Eurasians, and thus they survived until now. And another example is Formosa landlocked salmons. According to previous study, they were from Japan and came to Taiwan's mountains in the Ice Ages. After Ice Ages, plate movement and the change of rivers, they were forced to live in Daja River because they was cold enough for them to be alive. So they become landlocked. Because barrier to migration, they can exchange their genes and have already accumulated some genetic difference. And they are impossible to mate with the salmon in Japan in the natural condition. So they are thought to be subspecies or different species. As mentioned above, creatures will evolve due to geological changes and the barrier to migrations, and the fittest will survive. So I think evolution is a fact. Thanks to your listening.
Okay, so my name is Grace, and I'll be talking about two arguments: mutation and DNA sequencing. Sure, there are many combinations of DNA in a multicellular organism. However, we never seen any rearrangement that has made one species change into another species. Mutation isn't everything to evolution. However, mutation does play a role in evolution. Like, mutation can be beneficial, but in 1 billion mutations, only a small percentage is actually beneficial, which relates to the concept of entropy, because entropy is a gradual decline into disorder, much like the second law of thermodynamics. Added on to the fact that mutation can't actually change make new organs, which leads us to they can't become something else. Now that leads us to DNA. DNA is present in all organisms. It carries the genetic info and is basically the manual to life. Scientists claim that they've made DNA, but really they just modified it. If an intellectual can't make DNA, what's the possibility of mixing a random earth to make DNA?
The simplest celled organism has around 256 genetic genes. If Earth cannot even make one gene, what's the possibility that it'll make 256? Much less making the 256 genes into 20,500 genes, which is the amount in humans. Now, although evolutionists claim that the time span is huge, which is around 4 billion years, the probability against even a simple single-celled organism being produced is still inconceivably immense. And therefore, randomness just doesn't work. And if it did, we would have seen it by now. And therefore, our team strongly believes that evolution is not a fact. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Chloe, and today I'll be focusing on proving that evolution is merely a fiction. And so I'll be talking mostly about the body structure of different kinds of organisms. So take the human body, for example. In the human body, there's many different organs, right? And put together the organs to different types of body systems. However, if you put all organs needs to work together in order to make a human, and it needs to function too for a human being to live. However, if one of the organs malfunctions, then everything else just dies, right? And that basically means that there's no human being anymore. And so this shows how complex and cooperative the organs need to be. So if one of them doesn't work, then it basically destroys everything else in the body. And so this shows that since it needs all cooperation together, it actually requires a lot of energy and good design in order for it to cooperate. And so if it truly was from the evolution's point of view, then how can from chaos come together into pieces put together like a puzzle and make it into this human being or different other organisms? It's way too complex for that. And so also I'll be talking about the body structure of the horse. And so there in the horse's leg bone, there is below the front knee, there's a cut through the bone. And so before, when humans just realized about this, they thought it was a weakness because there's a cut through it. If they move, then if there's any kind of injury, then they're pretty much dead. However, they later on found out that there was a tissue around the cut to provide extra strength and protection for it. And so this merely shows that this tiny tissue, it's tiny, but it is really precise and intricate. So if it was this precise and intricate, then how can evolution just suddenly evolve from a different organism into this horse? There has to be, since such precise and detailed tissue that is just put there, there has to be some flaw if it was truly evolved from one being to another. And so this is why we believe that evolution is merely just a fact. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angelica, and today I'm going to support my teammate Edgar's opinion. I think most of you believe that over 300 million years ago, there is only one continent on the Earth called Pangaea, and Edgar's opinion is based on it. So today, I hope that I can convince you to believe that the Pangaea is true. So I take up 3 evidence of the Pangaea. First is the fossils. Scientists found that there are some fossils of same species and found in different continents and now separated by ocean. So we can think that the continent may be connected together at the past. And the second is the landform. Let's look at the map of the world. We can see that the South America and the South Africa can match together, and the mountains and the stone layer can match up too. And the third is the climate change. And people found the glacier at the South Africa and the tropical plants in the Arctic. So we can know that the climate in the past must be much different than now. So the reason may be the continent shift. And until here, all I want to say is we believe that the evolution is true, and it will affect by the environment and the geography. So, a little change of the climate may cause a huge influence of each species, and we say that they have a closely relationship between evolution and geography. So, sorry, and so because of the planets have a huge change before, and the creatures on the Earth must have some variation too, and we call the variation evolution. That's why we believe that the evolution is true. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a break. Come back at 10:40. Okay, watch your time.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony. From molecular biology, as we know, the cause of a breaking point in evolution tree may be genetic variability or other reason. The result of genetic variability will let creature has different in genes because of accumulating from generation to generation. So genetic variability is the base of evolution. Why genetic variability have happened? The genetic variability include mutation and genetic recombination. The genetic recombination is exchange of genetic material between different organisms, which lead to production of offspring with combination of traits different from those found in either parents. For example, sexual reproduction. The mutation is the permanent alternation of the nucleotide sequence of the gene. Cause of mutation might be the substitution, deletion, or translocation. Because DNA is composed of 4 different nitrogen-containing bases. This property provides a very good material to explain the relationship between different organisms. Take human for example. The higher of genetic similarity, the more close of evolution. Look at the picture. The difference of DNA sequence in human with chimpanzee is 1.2%, and with gorilla is 1.6%. So we can know that if the higher the similarity of DNA sequence, the more similar their evolution. To sum up, organisms from bacteria to human to dinosaur all have the same DNA system as a genetic code. This might point to evidence that all life evolved from a single common ancestor. Thank you.
Good morning, honorable educators and fellow debaters. My name is Max Lam from Marston Academy, Kaohsiung. Our team firmly believes that the motion evolution is not a fact, exists. In May 18, 1980, just near the stratovolcano located in Skamania County in Washington, the Pacific Northwest region of the United States, Mount St. Helens has erupted. After the eruption, in which deposited from the black cloud of ashes moving with a speed of 160 kilometers per hour, in which is equivalent to 100 miles per hour, scientists have found an astonishing result. The big surprise was that the sediment deposited in fine layers called laminae was expected to form in over hundreds of years and even millions of years. But Mount St. Helens shows that the cores of fine material automatically separated into thin, distinct bands, demonstrating that such deposits can form very quickly from fast-flowing fluids, which includes liquid or gas. Laboratory experiments also have shown that fine laminae form quickly from flowing water. This also proves that Noah's flood, which happened back in thousands of years ago, exists as a catastrophic event, which prove our point that this world is being created out of catastrophe. This also shows that how finely layered sandstone deposits in other situations, such as some of the low layers in the Grand Canyon, likely created rapidly, which means that they created in very fast time, very fast waters. which could have happened in the time scale of Noah's flood, as I just mentioned. The Mount St. Helens eruption also demonstrated how canyons could have been developed much faster and in a different manner than conventionally thought. Ongoing eruption eroded the thick sediment dumped at the base of the volcano, producing multiple channels and canyons. This devastating eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980 showed a lot about the effects of geographic catastrophe, features that geologists traditionally thought needed a long period of time to form, and very quickly, within hours, days, and weeks. In conclusion, Mount St. Helens changed our perception of how the world is developed and provided us a possibility of the world to be created by a supernatural being. Thank you.
Hello, fellow debaters. I am Phoebe Hong, a member of the creationist team. So my following points will be about intelligent design and vestigial structures. So before moving on to my first point, I want all of us to be on the same page. I believe that all of us can agree that every living organism has incredibly detailed features, whether it's based on an anatomical level, molecular, or cellular level. So building on this concept, imagine dissecting an animal and laying out all of its body parts on a table. Any animal is okay. Every body part that's laid out on the table is useless when they are separated, but useful when they are combined together. The world that we live in now is combined of all these creatures, and this level of organization cannot be seen anywhere, and we are unable to explain all these powerful phenomena. And the only reliable conclusion that we can draw from this is that there is a creator who puts in his divine purpose in all of these creatures, and that we are his design. So now moving on to my second point, a vestigial organ is an organ that's found in a present-day organism that has no function, but was once a useful functional organ in an evolutionary ancestor. So about a century ago, a scientist, he created a list that included about 180 vestigial organs for mankind. So the structures that are included are the appendix, tonsil, tailbone, pituitary gland, pineal gland, and the thymus gland. After development, scientific and medical research has shown that this list is basically down to zero because the true functions of these organs have been revealed. All of the mentioned organs are known to have important functions. Quoting scientist S.R. Scatting, vestigial organs provide no evidence for evolutionary theory. So one example from the human body is the tailbone. Our tailbone allows us to sit down and move, and it also facilitates bowel movement and supports internal organs. Finally, another interesting example is our wisdom teeth. So in the Bible, humans used to live for a long year, from 800 to 900 years. But now, we only live for 80 to 90 years at maximum. And it's shown that only because they lived longer, they were able to have wisdom teeth. But now we live shorter. That's why we have to sometimes pull out our wisdom teeth. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kate. I have to support my teammate opinion. According to statistics, more than 99% of mutations are abnormal, harmful, or fatal. Most of mutation individuals low survival rate, so that mutations are failed. Even survival rate are low, but it is not impossible. If 99% of creatures cannot survive after mutation, it still have about 1% survival rate. We did not have evidence for creatures must die or disappear after mutation. So that mutation only make evolution happen, may make the evolution happen. By the Google, I also have found someone proposed that the happen of mutation only change the size, color, missing part, or other, but the DNA basic structure have no change. The example is the snake can become white snake because of mutation. Even the mutation changes, but the individuals, that means the snake, still is the species of their own. I have to explain. In evolution, mutation or genetic variability is not happening once, maybe more than once, although the DNA basic structure have not changed. But the difference is getting bigger after accumulating from generation to generation. Example, like this, the human have evolved from the ant-man. Okay, here is the ant-man. Okay, and the ant-man and the chimpanzee have the same hominy ancestral. Okay, so the gene of ant-man and the chimpanzee must higher than those of human and the chimpanzee. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Irene. Now I'm going to talk about genetic heritage. In a life cycle, DNA will replicate and translocate to produce other cells. As we know, different species have the different DNA, so if all the species have no association, that should have different DNA. But indeed, we can find that some modern species have parts of DNA identical with some Asian species, and if we select the specific sequence or genes and recombine them or separate them, we can get the DNA parts of DNA from Asian species. And here's an example. Although human and mouse have different size and numbers of chromosomes, but we can find that some genes in the same human chromosomes are inverse translocate and replicate in mouse chromosome. Another example is human and chimpanzee. Our human chromosome 2 is a single chromosome, but indeed, our human chromosome 2 was from another 2 chromosomes, and these 2 chromosomes are still separate in other apes like monkeys or chimpanzee. And this all shows the relation between the species. And moreover, if the mutation occurs in the sex cell, no matter the mutation is harmful or beneficial, it can be passed from the parents to the offspring and passed on to a new generation. And this new generation may become a new species over time. So to sum up, it shows the DNA relation, and the new species share the parts of DNA from the parent species, and all through the process, the genes will be resolved, and it makes the genetic heritage. So the genetic heritage become an evidence of evolution and make the evolution is true. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kim, and today I'm going to be focused mainly on the topic of origin of life and the study of phylogeny. Now firstly, life can't accidentally come into existence from nothing over time. Dr. Stanley Miller conducted an experiment to see if the 4 ingredients CH4, NH2, H2O, and H2 would come together to form life accidentally. Even though it did create an amino acid in the end, he still set up the experiments with the 4 ingredients needed. If given a lot more time, you might say that it could have worked to create more complex life. But every human being has a conscience, and conscience can't be created by amino acid formed from gases. All that is to say, life is created on purpose and not on accident. Secondly, everything is too complicated and detailed to happen by accident. The DNA molecule, for example, it has coded information specific to that characteristics of the organism. Thirdly, everything is too dependent on each other to appear without intelligent design. The human body systems are a perfect example of this. The circulatory, muscular, and skeletal systems all work together to help your body function correctly. Your bones and muscles all work together to help support and move your body. Another example is how the heart and lungs work. Both the heart and lungs need oxygen. The heart pumps the blood to the lungs in order to receive oxygenated blood back. After a heart receives oxygenated blood, it is then pumped to every organ of the body, including the lungs and the heart itself. If even one of these body systems or organs didn't work correctly, then it could damage the way your body's supposed to work, or it can kill you. My second point is about phylogeny, which is the hypothetical relationship between the groups of organisms being compared based on the similarities and differences in their physical and genetic traits. Now, there is no proof for phylogeny. It is only based on mere assumptions of the scientists. The only hard proof it has was from a scientist named Haeckel, who was proven to be providing false information. So there's no proof, since the only proof is proven to be false. Thirdly, there is not enough time for phylogeny to occur. Phylogeny would have taken billions of years, but there's evidence that the Earth is only thousands of years old. The Earth annually deposits 459 million tons of salt in the ocean, and if the Earth was billions of years old, it would be saturated.
Okay, so good morning, fellow opponents and audience. My name is Ethan, and I'm the conclusion speaker of our team. So I will be summarizing our team's direction on this argument and then highlighting specific arguments that our team has presented. So our team firmly believes that evolution is fiction. One of our team's strongest points asserts the topic of origin of life, and this talks about how life doesn't randomly appear and come into existence from nothing. So life is too complicated to have come from nothing. For example, each and every one of us can easily die or get severely harmed if our organ systems didn't work the way it does now. So therefore, this also connects to the idea of intelligent design, because intelligent design explains why life is so complicated and why everything has a purpose and a function. So this relates to vestigial organs, because evolutionists say that vestigial organs like the human coccyx are not useful and that they are bad designs. However, these vestigial organs that evolutionists point out in fact have functions, and functions that are useful. Our team has once again presented another argument of the complexity of life, but through anatomy. A teammate brought up an example of the flawless design of a horse's leg bones. So there's a cut in a small bone below the knee, and evolutionists say that it's a weakness, but in reality it provides strength, and therefore evolutionists fail to bring up a logical point again. Another one of our team's argument is the argument about the impossibility of evolution through the electrical design of the human body. This design is impossible because we have 100 billion neurons, and each have their own specific role. And this type of intricate design is only made possible through an intricate creator. Another crucial point that our team has made is that mutations are rarely ever beneficial. In fact, there are 1 billion mutations, but only a few are beneficial, and that DNA is so complex that it couldn't have been formed by random chance. Therefore, moreover, another strong point our team has brought up is how macroevolution through mutations is possible. And lastly, I would like to conclude this argument with one of my teammates' points about how evolution contradicts this theory itself. And it's indisputable that our team's notion that evolution is fiction must still stand, because evolution lacks evidence for explaining the origin of life, and it displays itself as a theory that is full of contradictions, and it's just a fictional story that is told to little kids. Okay.
Hello, my name is Penny. Your team said that creator creates life. Then why are there mutations? Like you say, mutation is really beneficial. And do the creator feel asleep? Or I don't know, there's just no creator at all. And do you know what is the possibility for sperm to meet an egg? It's like 1 to millions. And here we are all alive and happy. And that is just in a human being's very short life. And don't mention there are years from the first life, the possibility for creatures to mutate can be high. And besides all that, I will give an strong evidence to support my teammate Irene. Have you ever heard of atavism? Atavism is an organism who shows traits that have not shown for several generations and have appeared in their ancestors. The genes for previously existing phenotypical features are preserved in DNA, and either it knocks out the overriding gene for the new traits or makes the old trait override the new one. Either way, the ancestor gene have been preserved. And I would like to give you an example. It's called hypertrichosis. It is an abnormal amount of hair growth over human body, just like apes and chimpanzees. Our ancestors used them to keep out the cold and to prevent scrapes. Atavism is an evolutionary throwback, and it is the evidence which makes me believe that evolution is a fact. Thank you.
Come to the proposition summation.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Vincent. And after all, my teammates have provided very dependable evidence to prove evolution. First, natural selection, which happened all over the world, including you and me. There are differences between organisms and organisms. Natural selection will leave those who adapt well and become the creatures we see at present. And next, the embryology. Tell us the animal's embryo have some structures in growing process, which means they are common origin in past. The anatomy shows the same result. By the evidence of bones, the axis of homologous structures means that different species have common origin, which support our opinion. We also find some traces in fossils. The toys type of horse fossils indicate the process of adaptation, which is a symbolization of natural selection. The biogeography tells us that once the environment changes slightly, the creatures will change a lot because of the result of adaptation. Finally, the molecular biology explains the evolution of DNA analysis. There is a high similarity between species, which means all creatures come from a common origin. After all, the evolution is the rule of life in nature. No matter you understand it or not, it deeply affects us. Thank you for your attention.
I want to challenge Becky's point on Haeckel's embryos, because later on scientists found out that Haeckel's embryos is a fraud because he add parts to the drawing that make it so that it seems similar, but it actually is not similar. Thank you.
Okay, Becky. Is that Becky? You want to take some time to prepare your answer? Okay. Next, Becky will answer later. Becky will take some time. Anyone else? From your side too. Anyone? Go ahead. Oh yeah.
Okay, so Irene said that if there are no common ancestor between the organisms, then there won't be common DNA between the organisms. But the 7 characteristics of life occurs in every living organism. So there must be common DNA to reproduce and to respirate and all that. So I want to say that just because there's common DNA doesn't mean there's common ancestor, because they perform similar functions. The 7 characteristics of life are they're performed by all living organisms. So in able to perform those functions, then they need similar genes to do that because they perform the same function. So thank you.
What is your question?
Huh?
What is your question?
Like because she said that they have similar. Just because, so I want to ask, like, does it really have to be? Do they really have to have a common ancestor to have similar genes?
Okay. Now the question here.
Do I go down, or do I stay? Do I stay here?
No, you fire your shot. Okay, who wants to answer that? Go ahead. Stella, go ahead. No, answer. Who wants to answer? Okay, Irene. Okay, here comes the answer.
So, I don't know your name, sorry. But you said that we have the common DNA, but we not from the same ester. But the same ester don't make the common DNA. It just make we have the similar to, like human and chimpanzee, we have similar. So we have the similar DNA, but it's, I'm sorry. And maybe I can step back later.
Okay. Becky, are you ready to answer? Not yet? Not yet. Okay, we have a challenger, Stella.
So I want to ask you guys, because you guys use Bibles to say that evolution is a fiction, but how do you deny the fact that evolution is a fact where there is a fossil evidence and a Big Bang theory that they already prove up the age of the Earth? Yes, this is my question. How do you prove that evolution is a fiction where there is a fossil records and the Big Bang theory and all the cosmetics evidence already prove that the age of the Earth? How do you say that the God just create the world out of nowhere in 7 days?
Answer.
Okay, so in my argument, I clearly stated that the Big Bang Theory violated one of the natural laws. So how are you sure that the Big Bang Theory is valid? And how are you sure that the Big Bang Theory can prove evolution? Thank you.
So you asked me how does the Big Bang theory prove? So I want to ask, so how dinosaurs exist before? If in the book of Genesis, they said that the humans exist first and then animals and then humans, and how about the dinosaur? The age of the humans and dinosaurs are different. They live in different decades. So how do you prove this? If you said it is fiction, but it's already a fact that dinosaur appears before human.
Okay, any reply? Or you want to wait?
Do I need to repeat my questions?
So in the book of Genesis, the order of creation clearly states that animals were created before humans. So they do not live in the same decade. So.
You said that they live in a different decades, but now I want the evidence that evolution is a fiction. But you don't have, because the evidence of the evolution is a fact that in the last decades that the dinosaur appeared first, then through the evolutions of anything, and here's what I have from dinosaurs and until the animals today. Because the book of Genesis said that animals like birds, modern birds, appear in the book of Genesis, but dinosaurs appear before birds. So how do you explain this if you want to prove that the evolution is a fiction? So my question is, because you said that in the book of Genesis that the evolution, the humans and the dinosaur appears in difference, but God created the human first, right? No, I mean after all the animals, then the humans. Where's the dinosaur? But if you read the book of Genesis, we know that they have the snake and all those birds. They were illustrated in the modern pictures, but they never mention dinosaur. They never mention dinosaur in book of Genesis.
But it doesn't mention all the names of the animals that we.
So if you can name out. So what's your proof? Where's your proof? Animals. So.
Okay. Science. Well, you have
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I forgot your name. No, the one right next to me. Yeah. You said that humans and gorillas have a 1.6% of differences in their DNA. But did they like set out the whole DNA and compare every one of them, or is it just a fraction of their DNA that they compared?
Okay, can you answer right away? I'll give you some time. Okay, Becky, are you ready to answer?
Okay, I forgot your name, sorry. And the vertebrates have the cerebral process during the embryonic period, although they develop into the different function at that. But the species will not evolve into the same one. They will evolve to be more adaptable one to environment, and this is just the evolution. Yeah. So. Yeah, this is my answer.
Okay, Irene. The purpose for our students to go back to. So Irene, yeah.
Okay, according to what you said, and then why we don't all share the similar DNA, but while there are animals that is closest that has the closest relate between us, and there are some are very far from us, and so that is why we can categorize all animals and draw evolution trees like this, and because there is all the common ancestor before us, so there is some relationship between chimpanzee and humans and some else from humans. So that's it.
Okay, more questions? Okay, Bintu.
Okay, as your first opposition's construction had mentioned that God had created everything, so God set everything order. So I will have a question like, as you mentioned that, as we know, Bible had mentioned that they have created a man, and which called Adam, and also take a rib from his body to create a woman, which called Eve. So that if we said that they have the same number of ribs, and that should be an odd number. However, we in the anatomium we find that both human, or ever you are a woman or a man, we both have 24 ribs. And the rib function is to protect our heart, the lungs, also stomach, other important structure. So how can you claim that, as the Bible said, about the rib problem?
Okay, question about ribs. Any answer?
Okay, so let me take an. When Adam was created, he had 24 ribs. But let me take an example. Like when Adam was created, he had all his ribs. But like just like a soldier who got his leg cut off, his kids will still have legs. So if Adam's ribs were taken out after he was created, that means his kids will still have the ribs.
So, as your teammate, Koi, had mentioned that our body structure need cooperation, or human being would all death, right? So, is that a little bit problem with what you mentioned? Because you have mentioned that we need, although we don't have a rib, or although we don't have some organs, we can still keep alive. However, you have mentioned that if some of the functions doesn't work and human being is death, so is it a little bit a range problem?
Okay, before that, we need to take a pause. Tony needs to answer. Not yet.
You say I just intercept the fragment gene to compare, but other fragments are the difference between species. I just other
DNA sequence?
Yeah, DNA sequence. The other DNA sequence is the reason to cause the difference in species.
Anyone else? Okay, then Kid has a question.
Okay. Sorry that I did not remember who is talking about the Big Bang theory because you have a lot of people say that. Okay, I have an experiment that called mirror urine experiment. He using the H2O or other of inorganic matter to make keep in the flask which have not any bacterial condition. It means did not have any living thing inside. And then he make a rain and thunder. So the result is have the small molecular organic matter appear. So this experiment has talking about the how did the inorganic matter become the organic matter. It is possible. Do you have any experiments to talk about the inorganic matter cannot become the organic matter? Thanks.
Answer. Another person? Answer. That's easy answer. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so he was saying that like the organic matter in the experiments could come together and possibly make life, right? But it doesn't show that they made life on accident. The experiment was still set up by the person. He put the 4 ingredients inside the flask himself. So he purposefully put them inside so they would come together and create life.
No, let me clarify that. That experiment only to prove that organic matter could be created by inorganic matter, not about life. So life is one step, a big leap. Okay, so it's nothing about life. Okay, let me say another question. Okay, here. Okay, okay, after him, 2 more questions. We got to wrap up. You guys have questions.
Hello, I'm Edgar. I don't remember your names, but most of you mentioned that the complexity of the creature. So you don't believe it, so you believe creation. But I want to say that animals are not so complexity in the beginning. In the beginning, we have no tissues and like sponges. And after we have tissues and 2 layers, and we call that cnidarian, like jellyfish. And after we have 3 layers and no body cavity, like fat forms. And then later we have body cavity, like pseudoacidomate, like rotifers or nematodes, like roundworms. And then after we have real body cavity, like porostone and Lida, like earthworms, mollusk like octopus. And so I want to say that the complexity of animal is because evolution. Yes. Okay. Not creation.
Wait, so you're saying, wait, the question is small. Wait, so you're saying that it's like evolution is complex? Wait, what was the question?
It's made evolution, not creation.
Well, let me ask you, how did life start? If it's like a big bang, then it appears, right? If it appears, like the probability is very small, and like evolution is very, very complex. And what you're reading sounds kind of like you're reading off of Wikipedia, because I actually looked into it. But then it's like it doesn't work like that, because if you look at it, evolution is saying that one species changed into another species, right? Well, the difference with the DNA is too big, and even if it was mutation, I believe somebody said that a snake turned white or something, but the snake is still a snake. It's not like a snake turned into a bird or something. So, yeah.
You're asking a question or you're answering? Okay. Okay. Question. After one more question.
All right, so many of you have talked about only the fittest survive, and since we're the cousins of apes, so we're obviously the fittest because we're smarter and we're more intelligent. Then my question is, if only the fittest can survive and then apes are our ancestors, then how are we both still existing at the same time?
Okay, simple question. Any answer? Why do humans and apes coexist at the same time if apes are our ancestors? Okay, Penny.
Hi, my name is Penny. At the beginning of the debate, one of you has said that monkey is our ancestor, and actually is not. Monkey and apes is actually like our cousin. It's not our ancestor. So that's your answer.
Okay. We need the last reply. Question. Okay. One more question. Okay. No, I can't put the stop to it. Otherwise, it's going to go on forever. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would like to do my rebuttal on Vanessa. So you said that giraffes grew longer necks to overcome their flaws of not being able to reach higher leaves. Then how come the macroevolution or microevolution only applies to giraffes and other animals to overcome their flaws, but not to us to overcome our flaws? As I mentioned, we have smaller pelvis that cause labor pain. So why don't we just adapt to that and grow bigger pelvis to overcome that pain? That's my question.
Why?
I think you mentioned a giraffe that you say why the other animal. I think that is yes, the natural selection maybe is a microevolution, but it is a compare with the species and species. But if we not compare the species and species, so if we not, that the world will appear the half cat, half dog. So and yes, the natural selection is a microevolution. This is true, but I think it will not explain how the why we will not
explain the species and not species, not the same species.